It's the VancouverEntrepreneur.ca podcast.
As an entrepreneur, you started your business to follow your passion and not to spend your evenings doing bookkeeping. That's why VancouverEntrepreneur.ca uses Legacy Advantage. Let me tell you, they are a great CPA level bookkeeping firm. Let Legacy take the bookkeeping task off your hands so you can have more time to pursue your dreams. You will get peace of mind knowing that the bookkeeping is done and the tax authorities are off your back. Visit legacyadvantage.ca, and if you mention that you came from Vancouver Entrepreneur Podcast, they will give you a $100 credit to apply towards your first month. You simply can't beat that. Hello, this is Robert Smigel coming to you today with VancouverEntrepreneur.ca, where we talk to the entrepreneurs who are making it happen here in British Columbia. Brad W. Rudover is the founder of Country Club X, originally from Michigan, raised by an entrepreneur father and senior level MBA mother. He earned a degree in small business management at Ferris State University. He then moved to Whistler a few months after graduation in late 1999 to be a snowboard bum. Having achieved moderate success with Easy Trivia in Jersey app, Brad decided to create another tech company in 2016, a social network for country club members called Country Club X. Well, Brad, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time today to be here for all our listeners.
Good morning, Robert, and thank you very much for having me on the show. It's a pleasure.
Okay, well, tell us a little bit more about yourself. We know you're from Michigan, but give us the details on your current business.
So just a little bit about me. I am a serial entrepreneur. So even in college, I had a small computer company that, I would fix computers, not unlike, Dell, but I wasn't nearly as big. And so, as you mentioned, I had a couple different ventures, a few years ago. And so now Country Club X is kind of my latest project, I call it. And what it really does is it connects country club members across the world so that they can golf at and experience the amenities of private clubs wherever they travel. Typically, when you're a member of a country club, you can only really golf at your course and maybe a couple other reciprocal courses. Whereas, I noticed that there's kind of a problem in the marketplace that didn't allow members to travel and play private courses. And this is exactly the problem that Country Club X solves.
Perfect. Okay, now, did you need financing to start your company, and how do you currently make money in your business now?
So the financing came out of my own pocket. And so, luckily I have a tech background, so I was able to really keep my costs quite low. So I could essentially develop most of the technology myself. And so, with regards to generating revenue, we're at the point where, it's growing. So we're just under 100 members right now. And so we want to just make sure that everything's going straightforward, and we don't want to really confuse our members by running any ads or anything like that. So there's no revenue at this point. But later on, as we go forward, I'm sure, we'll figure out the revenue model.
Do your passion, the money will follow.
Well, and it's kind of like very similar to The Social Network. I'm not sure if you've ever seen that movie, but
yeah,
within that movie, Mark Zuckerberg and his partner Eduardo Saverin, Eduardo says to Mark, look, we need to monetize the website, and Mark replies and says, well, it's cool, and we don't really know what cool is, and so I guess that's kind of where we're at with Country Club X, is that all of the feedback that I've had across the golf community, everyone says it's very cool. And so I really don't want to do anything to compromise that factor. So let's just let it run and see what happens.
Okay, now what is the long-term vision and what will your company look like in the future? Do you see the company expanding into other areas, and where beyond Vancouver, BC, or even Canada?
Yes, sir. I think that there is a great future for this project. As we continue to grow, I think our customers are going to demand more out of the technology. They're going to say, oh, we want to see different parts of the marketplace that we can use. We want to create communities, or we want to create meetups. So I think there are a lot of options to go forward. And I'm not trying to steer it. I've just created it, and I'm letting the community kind of develop it and let us know what they want it to be. And then, from there, I think it's pretty clear that there's other similar type of sports or leisure that this might apply to, such as tennis or pickleball or basketball. I mean, like, you can think of any kind of social sport where you need people to participate. So certainly this might be the first iteration, and then we may expand into other markets as well.
Okay, well, we've learned a little bit about Country Club X and we've learned a little bit about you. So we want to talk about doing business in Vancouver. What are the biggest benefits for you and being an entrepreneur here in Vancouver, BC? I want you to give us some of the good points about starting a company here, but I also want you to give us some of the tough things or challenges for our listeners so they can keep an eye out for them.
I think that's a great question. Vancouver was kind of typically known as, more of like a hippie sort of city. I'm from the East, Michigan. So we're pretty known for kind of industrial sort of things, and obviously automotive, and, just a lot busier than most on the West Coast, I would say. Maybe now everything's caught up, but, so what Vancouver really looked like for me was that it was more of a place where you can think outside of the box. I have to say that the East Coast definitely is more about just grinding out whatever you're doing, and it's just kind of one dimensional. Whereas out here in Vancouver, you're surrounded by oceans, mountains. And so it really taps into your ability to kind of be more creative. So that's kind of the feeling I think most people get when they come out here, is they just feel more connected with nature, and they're kind of removed from the daily grind. And so, then you have a variety of different people here that are kind of more on the creative side. It's just a big draw from across Canada. If you think about it, is like the weather's pretty great here all year long. I mean, obviously there's a lot of rain, but we don't get the minus 20s like they do in Ontario and Quebec, and certainly across like the prairies. So I think you're getting the best of the best from across the country that are moving out here. So obviously the drawback to that is that there's certainly a lot more demand on resources such as housing and just about anything. So that drives costs up. So doing business in Vancouver is expensive. So and even just living in Vancouver is expensive. So as long as you understand that and you can generate enough revenue to sustain that, like, your business can be very successful here.
Okay, now you touched on a point of being connected to nature, and that's what Vancouver, BC offers. We do some of our best work outside the office. Is there a place in the Lower Mainland, close to where you live or work, where you like to go recharge or get inspired to just think about your business? And does it change with the season, considering all the rain we get here?
Well, Robert, certainly, given the nature of my business, I am a golfer. I'm connected to golf. I wrote an article not too long ago about the benefits of golf, and actually I called it How Golf Can Change Your Life. You can see it on LinkedIn. You can Google that. And so what I say in that is that, there's not many sports or activities that you can do where you're outside for 4 hours at a time. You're experiencing nature, it's a beautiful scenery. There's trees, fresh air, all of those things. So that really helps me to stay grounded. And it allows me to kind of take my mind off of, the daily stresses that you have in your life. And, at the end of it is you kind of come back refreshed, and you're able to kind of focus more clearly on what your business objectives are. So I think it really is beneficial to, take up the game of golf. And then, in terms of, winter months, sure. Yeah. We have a lot of rain, so it's not ideal to golf in the rain. So what I typically do in the winters is I spend time at the pool with our 2-year-old daughter, doing swim lessons. So that's a lot of fun, and that allows me to kind of, just experience life through her eyes.
Okay, well, we have a lot of international listeners, so this next question, I want you to speak to them. I want you to imagine you just moved here from Michigan. If you were to start all over again, and you just moved here to Vancouver, BC, but this time you don't know anyone, knowing what you know now, what would you do, and how would you go about starting all over again as an entrepreneur?
It's an interesting question. I think that, like any opportunity that you can to be social. So there's a lot of different, different social activities that you can participate in. I think there's Vancouver Meetup or something like that. For me, I would say that a country club is by far the best place where you can do networking with very successful people that can, then assist you with your business and kind of lead you down a different path that maybe you didn't know of. So I mean, that's if you're into golf. And if not, you can find maybe a tennis club or something like that where you're in, contact with, many different people from many different backgrounds.
Okay, let's talk about your routine for a second here. What does the first hour look like for you when you get up in the morning? Do you have a specific routine or a ritual that helps you get motivated to start your day?
Yeah, so for me, I'm quite disciplined, and I often call myself a robot. So in the mornings, usually up around 5:30, 6 o'clock, I will immediately do a kind of a shortened meditation session, maybe about 15, 20 minutes. And then that leads me into to breakfast, get some protein going, check out the news, and then get right into, emails and communication with, clients and colleagues. And, as you can imagine, your day just starts right around 7, 8 o'clock.
Do you think entrepreneurs have to be weird or unique in a positive way, or are wired differently?
I think the weirder you are, the more successful you'll be. It comes down to, being unique, is what are you into? You should be as diversified as possible. Don't just be a mainstream type of person. You want to kind of, have your own beliefs, have your own, knowledge, and go with it, and I think that, being weird actually sets you apart from the rest of the crowd.
So it gives you that edge as an entrepreneur, being a little bit different.
For sure it does. You think differently. You see things differently. And there's a lot of people that won't see the angles that you do.
Okay, what books are you reading now and why, or even audiobooks? And can you recommend any books for our listeners who are also aspiring entrepreneurs?
For sure. I'm currently reading, I think it's called E-Myth. And that kind of just talks about, kind of warning you almost about being an entrepreneur. if you're what they term as a technician, like if you're highly skilled in a certain industry, going and starting up your own business, it's not as easy as it sounds. Like, yeah, you might be very good at what you do, but do you know how to run a business? That's the question. So I think it's a very good read for anyone that's thinking to become an entrepreneur, or anyone that has kind of started an entrepreneurial venture. Then, of course, one of my favorite authors is Malcolm Gladwell. So I think anything that he writes is fantastic.
Okay, what online or offline tools do you use on a daily basis?
Well, I think we've been talking about networking quite a bit here. So I have to say that LinkedIn, love it or hate it, I absolutely love it. I think it's so great to connect with so many different people. And like the community is really about helping each other. So I've been very fortunate, at least, so I can share my success stories. And some people don't really utilize it as you should. So I would say that's definitely a great tool to use. Definitely WhatsApp is an awesome tool. You can create groups on there and communicate around the world. So that's definitely a great tool.
Okay, now Vancouver, BC is a very beautiful place to live. We've talked a bit about that, the mountains, we got lots of lakes, rivers, you name it. How do you balance work, and how do you relax and not even think about work? And what are your favorite activities to do here in BC? Obviously you golf, but do you also ski, bike, kayak, hike, or simply go for a drive?
Yeah, so we're so fortunate to live here. I mean, I'm looking out the window and I can see the mountaintops with the snow on it. I mean, so it's hard for you not to really feel connected to nature here. I mean, you might be downtown Vancouver in the middle of a boardroom, but you look out any window and you're going to see ocean or mountains. So it definitely kind of makes you a little bit more calm and just have that connection. So yeah, I mean, I think like anytime that you can get outside here is great. Like, I mean, sea kayaking is such an awesome activity to do. Like, say in the Inner Harbor, it's super calm there. You're going to see some seals, and it's just a really easy thing to do. You don't really need any training. So I definitely recommend that if anyone comes out to Vancouver, is to get on a sea kayak and cruise around a little bit.
If you weren't doing what you do now, what would you like to do for a profession?
Well, I think what that Anthony Bourdain guy does is pretty cool. He gets to travel around the world, stay at fancy hotels, and eat the best food on the planet. So if I wasn't doing what I was doing right now, I would love to be the new Anthony Bourdain.
What kind of a job would you not like to do? Couldn't do it?
I don't know if I could do anything underground, like mining, or cleaning out sewers, or I don't think I could handle that.
In business, what is your favorite word, quote, or sentence that you like to use?
I think synergy is definitely a word that I've always kind of used, and empowerment. Those are kind of two key words for me. I like to, I like to, have full autonomy. I like to give full autonomy to anyone that's working with me, because ultimately you're working with someone that you trust, and you know that they're going to do whatever is in the best interest of the business. So I think that's a key word, is autonomy.
What is your least favorite word or sentence you do not like to hear?
Micromanagement. I think that how business is going nowadays, it's very kind of strange that systems like Salesforce and all of those type of tools, they're kind of now trying to essentially download everyone's information, so that you don't have that personal touch. And I think that those systems are going to fail us, and because ultimately, every single business transaction is to do with people. And so if you don't have that personal touch, your business is doomed for sure.
If you had to pick one or two words to describe yourself, what would it be and why?
2 words. I would say positive and, energetic.
Okay. What keeps you up at night, if anything?
Well, I think as a parent, we're relatively new parents. We have a 2-year-old daughter, and I think you just kind of worry about, what are we doing to set her up for success in the future, and are we doing everything we can correctly, and so we're taking parenting course, just to make sure that we understand all of the dynamics. So that's been super helpful. I definitely recommend that to any new parent or parents has older children. I think that raising kids is forget about business. That's the most important thing that you're going to do in your entire life. And you study for everything else, you read books about everything else. Well, why aren't you taking a course on how to parent? I think it's a natural thing to do.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's kind of like you need to take a course to even get a driver's license, right? So some of these things it is just common knowledge, you think, to do something like that. Okay, now give us the top 3 things on your inspired life list. This could be a bucket list of any sort, whether you want to write books, TEDx talks, travel more, anything like that?
There's definitely a few things that I want to accomplish before I leave this planet. Definitely want to make my way over to Ireland and Scotland to experience the links courses over there. That is definitely pretty high on the bucket list. Let's throw in Augusta National on there as well. I would love to play Augusta National. So then, in terms of writing. I started writing a book maybe a couple years ago on happiness, and I'm slowly chipping away at it. I'm sure, as you know, writing a book is not an easy endeavor. So eventually, I would like to finish that, and if one person reads it and is happy, that's mission accomplished.
Do you have any advice that you may have received that you can pass on to entrepreneurs throughout BC?
I sure can, and it actually came from a professor of mine when I was doing my undergrad at Ferris State University. FSU is a golf school. Like, we're known for a program called Professional Golf Management. So one of our professors in our business law course, kind of opened one of his lectures with asking all of us who golfs, and a few of us put up our hands, a few of us didn't, and he said, well, if there's one piece of advice I can give you is to learn how to golf, and he went on to say, you're going to sign more contracts on the back of a napkin after a round of golf than you will on 8.5 by 11 in a boardroom. So that really resonated with me. Obviously, I did take up golf, and I'll tell you, golf has certainly benefited my professional life and taken my career to many different places that I really didn't anticipate. So, look, not everyone's going to be into it, but that's the advice that I can give you.
And I imagine not only for you, but I imagine you've seen other deals on the golf course as well, outside of your circle.
Of course, and I actually know of a few people that join country clubs only for the networking component, and to try and generate business. So it happens, it truly does. I'm just saying. Okay. It's one of those games where it's a social game. There really aren't any other games like it.
Now, do you think it matters how good you are when you're on the course? I mean, as far as business deals and things like that, or is it more what you have to offer businesses and stuff like that? Does your ability come into play? Do you think when you're signing deals and things like that?
I think, sure. I mean, if you can keep up with whoever you're playing with, that's maybe something. But realistically, when I golf with a novice, I'll just say, just pick up your ball. Let's just go putt together. I mean, it really doesn't matter to me. I realize that they're not a golfer, but they're at least trying. And I think that really shows their character, is that they're out of their comfort zone and they're trying to impress something on me or someone else. And that takes a lot of courage. So, I would say you're almost going to earn more points if you're not a very good golfer.
And you're out there working it, trying, practicing. It's a plus.
For sure.
Okay, Brad, you ready to have some fun?
Let's do it, my friend.
Okay. As you know, entrepreneurs are very busy people. We're always connected, whether it be with staff, clients, we're always on the go. We're going to take you away from all that. There's a small tropical island just off of Fiji that only has one phone booth there. There is no internet. This place does exist. We're going to drop you off there. You won't have a computer or a smartphone or a tablet. You can use the phone booth located there anytime to call the boat. We'll come pick you up. How long would you last before you made that call? And what would you do while you were there?
That sounds like a pretty fantastic place. There's often times where I say I just want to disconnect from all technology. Like when we go to Maui, we try and shut everything down. I think if I were dropped on that island, I'd probably go for a swim, hang out on the beach, try to find some, fruit, like pineapples or mangoes or whatever it is. Once I kind of got past that, I'd probably be calling you up. So, I'd say I could last maybe 3-4 hours before I'm calling my lifeline, because I'm not really a resourceful type of guy. I can't, build like a house from scratch or whatever it is, So, as awesome as it would sound to be on a tropical island, I probably couldn't do it for much more than a few hours.
Okay, Brad, we're going to wrap things up. How can our listeners get hold of you? And is there anything you'd like to add before you leave us today?
I would say to, anyone that's thinking of an entrepreneurial venture, as crazy as it may sound to anyone that you talk to, or as crazy as it may seem in your mind, just keep going with it and refine it and keep going and pushing yourself until it makes sense. And that's when you're going to come up with truly you're trying to solve a problem in the marketplace. And so if you can solve a problem from some crazy idea, it's going to work. So I would say just stick with your gut and go with it. So that being said, if anybody out there wishes to, reach out to me, I'm always available. You can find me on LinkedIn quite easily, connect with me. Or you can look up countryclubx.com and connect with me through there.
Okay, well, thank you for coming on the show. I've learned a lot about you, and I'm sure our listeners have as well.
Well, thank you very much for having me on the show, Robert.
Great. Okay, we'll see you next time.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hey there, thanks for taking the time to listen to the VancouverEntrepreneur.ca podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show today. Make sure you sign up for our newsletters and write a review for us on iTunes, and then connect with us on Twitter at Van City Podcast and like us on Facebook. And you'll get all the latest news, including the BC Weekly Business Report, where you can find out more about what's going on in this fabulous province of ours. See you next time.